just talking past each other.
Well, it is interesting to watch Democrats figure out how to respond to these demands from their base. It is not uncommon for either party to be trapped in a situation where the activist portion of their base is calling for something more extreme than the establishment portions of the party are willing to get behind. By and large, elected Democrats in Congress are not in favor of the concept of defunding the police. They say are actually attempting to rewrite a little bit of what that means. We've heard some Democrats say when they hear defund, they hear reform, and that they think that the real intention here is to change the way the police interact with the communities that they serve.
NPR congressional correspondent Kelsey Snell, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are also hearing more about the coronavirus. Today, the largest union of registered nurses in the country is testifying to the House Oversight and Reform Committee about the need for more personal protective equipment for medical workers. Joining us now is Zini Cortez. She is the president of National Nurses United. She's also a nurse at Kaiser Permanente, South San Francisco's medical center. Zini, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we had you on the show back in April talking about this very topic, a lack of adequate protections for nurses. Have conditions improved in any way?
Well, I'm sorry to say that it has not improved, and I think we are being faced with another problem because now we're being asked to reuse our N95s, also known as the respirator masks, and also whatever PPE we could reuse for the next patient and for the rest of our shift. We are being told to do so.
Wow, I mean, this probably will be a huge topic today as lawmakers on Capitol Hill hear more about concerns. We know that House Democrats included a section in their last stimulus package to ramp up more PPE production through the defense, but the Senate has not taken this up yet, and this measure is not at this point expected to pass. What are you asking Congress to do to address these concerns?
Well, we have been asking the president to fully invoke the Defense Production Act. There are too many Americans who are out of work, and that if the industries and the factories can be mandated to produce N95s and also other PPEs that are needed to fight the coronavirus, then it would be good all the way around because people would have jobs, the frontline workers will be protected, and we will be preventing unnecessary deaths, and we will be protecting the public as well. It will do a lot of good for a lot of people.
What else are nurses worried about at this stage of the pandemic? I mean, I'm asking this with the realization as I hear you speak that we were having almost an identical conversation a few months ago.
Yes, that's true. And with the country reopening, we would see a surge of patients, contracting the virus because right now we do not have strict guidance on the prevention of the transmission of the disease. And people think that the pandemic is over, but it's not. It's still there. And so we're just afraid that with the influx of infected patients and with lack of PPE for us frontline workers, it would be a disaster waiting to happen.
The CDC is reporting that at least 379 healthcare workers have died of COVID-19 here in the U.S., but your colleagues actually think that number is much higher. What are you hearing?
We have found out as of June 5th that there are 914 frontline workers who have died, reported deaths that we could find through public records and internal tracking and obituaries. And out of that, 134 nurses are in that category. So it's just so concerning that all these deaths could have been prevented if only we were given the proper protective equipment to begin with. And again, with the influx, possibly the influx of patients coming in because of what's going on, reopening of the country, and also with all this protests going on, there might be an uptick of infected coronavirus patients coming in.
What is your final message to lawmakers about why it is vital to act at this moment?
Lawmakers should act now before it's too late. We are there for our patients, and Congress and lawmakers should be there for us. And all we are asking is provide us with the optimum personal protective equipment, and we will do our jobs just like what we do now. We will do it safely and with love and care.
That's Zini Cortez. She is the president of National Nurses United. Zini, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're listening to Here and Now.
Are we asking the police to do too much?
I think we need to have a very serious conversation in this country about what we mean by public safety, and then ask whether the police are the right folks to be achieving that in every instance.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly with Police are for in America this afternoon on All Things Considered from APR News.
Ahead from 4 to 6:30 on WHYY.
I'm Sharon Brody. The Republican National Committee chairwoman says Jacksonville, Florida is the front runner to host the GOP celebration marking President Trump's re-election nomination. Charlotte had been set as the host of the Republican National Convention, but the president has demanded a full-scale convention free from social distancing measures during the coronavirus pandemic, and North Carolina's governor has rejected that approach. A retired federal judge appointed to review the Justice Department's motion to dismiss criminal charges against President Trump's former national security advisor is accusing the Justice Department of a gross abuse of prosecutorial power. Former Judge John Gleeson today urged the court to reject the administration's attempt to drop the case against Michael Flynn. Gleeson says the government has engaged in highly irregular conduct to benefit a political ally of the president. You're listening to Hearing Now.
Supporting WHYY Delmarva Power. This summer, you can earn credit toward your energy bill by using less energy on peak savings days, which are a few days each summer when energy demand is high. Learn more at delmarva.com/peakde.
Can't sleep? A lot of people's rhythms are way off and they're up all hours. How about listening to WHYY? We're always on, always calm and relaxing. Come on, public radio. And if you drift off, well, good. Sweet dreams.
Funding for Here and Now comes from the listeners of WBUR Boston and your NPR station. And Geico, offering motorcycle and RV insurance. More information available on motorcycle and RV insurance at geico.com or 1-800-947-AUTO.
It's Here and Now. At a recent Black Lives Matter protest in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I saw so many little kids. 4-year-old Elliot fiercely held up a Black Lives Matter sign. Here's his white dad.
I love Jesus, and I want him to understand this stuff and fight things that he knows that aren't right.
Then there's the little black girl, Winta Amore Rogers, who's become a YouTube sensation with her furious finger-waving protest march in Merrick, New York. Little kids are a part of this movement, but how should parents talk to them about it? Dr. Beverly Daniel Tatum is the former president of Spelman College, child psychologist, and author of books on kids and race, one of them about race in the classroom. Dr. Tatum, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And speaking of schools, you've also written that little black kids can often be uncomfortable with hearing about racism and slavery in school. They feel singled out, they feel like victims. And white teachers are uncomfortable telling little kids the history of, blacks being lynched or children bombed to death in churches. So carry that over to parents, that a child might not want to hear something, might be victimized. How should parents have these conversations?
Well, part of the challenge right now is that there's so much in the news. The killing of George Floyd on the screen. It's not something for children to see, but whether parents want them to or not, they might see it inadvertently. In which case, parents can have conversations with preschoolers about fairness and unfairness. Talking about what parents are doing to make sure that their children stay safe and to bring about positive change so that nobody experiences that again.
We're talking about black parents now. I think I want to stay there before moving to white families, but talking to how little parents say they can't always keep safe.
If you're talking to a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, odds are you can't keep them safe. They want to know that their parents are there to support and care for them. And 99% of the time, that is true. Preschoolers, because they're rarely out alone. If you're talking to an older child who is out on the streets alone, then that conversation needs to be different.
I want to talk about that conversation. How do you explain to a child old enough to understand what they're seeing? A black man killed by a white police officer. How do you have that conversation without making them also feel dehumanized, like their lives don't matter?
Well, that has to be part of the conversation, because when you see somebody dehumanized, as George Floyd clearly was, and when you identify with that person, maybe you are not necessarily thinking, oh, that could have been me because you're a child, but it could have been my dad. That's a scary thought. So parents have to both acknowledge the anxiety, the fear, and the fact that these things have happened, and we are all working hard to make sure they don't happen in the future.
Police officer, they're the ones that have the problem. This should not reflect on you or on other people of color. This doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. There's something wrong with the world.
Yes, well, I certainly, I think black parents want to affirm the humanity of their children and themselves.
And do you have to also give them hope that there is something like a protest? Some people might feel that's, I don't know. I'm sort of guessing, aren't I, being white, but I'm wondering if people would feel that's just trying to counterbalance, wipe out what's real with this fairy tale of activism and protest, because we've had them for years and it hasn't changed anything. So how do you bring hope to a child?
Well, one of the things that I think of is from Brian Stevenson, head of this initiative and author of the book Just Mercy, and he says, injustice prevails when injustice persists. So in order for us to see and work toward justice, we have to believe that change is possible. My father was a college professor. When he wanted to earn his PhD, we were living in Florida. He couldn't go to Florida State University because of segregation. That's an example of change. This problem of institutionalized state violence against black people is part of our past, and it is protest that will hopefully make it something that we can look back on as what used to happen and not what is still happening.
How do you navigate of a black child? Tell them about systemic, historic racism on the part of some police without triggering a rage that could be hurtful to the young people. You want to keep it safe, but you also want to know maybe that there is some authority that he has to respond to.
Yes, of course. Black parents often refer to what is colloquially known as, quote, the top. And that child needs to understand when a police officer asks you a question, you must always be polite, you must always keep your hands visible so they don't think you're reaching for a weapon. And even if it feels like it's not fair, I need you to remember this so that you don't accidentally get hurt, or worse yet, killed. Who wants to tell their child that someone who's supposed to help them might actually hurt them?
Can black parents afford to tell their children, when you're in trouble and you need help, there are good police you can go with?